Angie All and Heather Gam from Bremer County Conservation, and today we are visiting you. We took a little field trip today. We're visiting you from Fontana Park in Buchanan County. We also have Michael here to help us out with if we have any other extra questions about our owl today. So I have a great horned live owl with me, and right now you can probably see that it's missing an eye from your side. When it looks at me, you can see the eye, but it actually was injured back in 2009, and it was taken to the Iowa State Wildlife Care Center, and there they determined, after they got it back to good health and stuff, they determined that it could not go back out in the wild. So because of that, then it is kept as an educational animal. Educational animals are great because you can take field trips to places like Fontana or Osborne to see animals like this, and it's great for us naturalists because we can actually bring a live animal into people's classrooms or care facilities to be able to show them a real live owl. How often do you get to see a real live owl in your classroom? He's kind of thinking about jumping, so let's just let him calm down for a second. Hi, yeah. If you notice, he is actually panting right now. So owls cannot sweat, just like our dogs. And so they pant to cool themselves down. If you can see, probably not, but there's its tongue in there is going up and down, and you can see that going up. And it is panting just like our dog when our dog gets hot. So let's talk about the eyes of an owl. They have such cool eyesight, such great eyesight, that they can see without using contacts like I have in my eyes right now. And they have such big eyes that if I was an owl, if an owl was the size of me, I'd have tennis balls as the size of my eyeballs. That is huge, and so big that they actually do not have muscles around their eyes. So I want everybody to hold their head still. I want you to look left, right, left, right. We can turn our eyes, right? The owl cannot turn its eyes. So as you hear, or as you see, there's all kinds of songs going off in the forest right now around me. And so the owl is turning its head to be able to try to see what is going on. Oh, I'm sorry, I moved you a little bit. So it moves its head. Now, can it move its head completely in a circle? No. It can go about 270 degrees. And let's see if we can get him to turn. You're not going to turn your head on me? Not too much? See if we can, no? You're a little unsteady right now, aren't you? There you go. Are you better? So, oh, there we go. Can kind of turn its head. Michael's helping us out here. And kind of making some noises. So we can turn our head to be about to our shoulder. Maybe if I would have stretched, I could have turned it a little past my shoulder. But then we can move our eyes to see what is behind us. So since they do not have those muscles, they actually need to turn that head, like that, to see what's behind them. I have a stoy owl here to be able to show you how far an owl's head can turn around. Now, this is just a puppet, right? So the puppet can go all the way around. However, an owl actually has a vertebrae. It's part of the vertebrate family. And it can only go, so it can go to about here, or it can turn its head very fast and go about here. So it can only turn its head 270 degrees. It cannot go the full 360 degrees to make a full circle. So puppets sometimes lie to us when we get them from a store, but it is kind of cool that we can turn this owl's head around to see what's behind it. Here is a skull. This is just a fake one that we had purchased, but it's a great skull replica to show the size of those eye sockets there that we have for those owls. There's, remember, no muscles inside of there, so that eye socket is just to hold that eye. But then you can see the big beak, you can see the nostril holes there for breathing. And then this bottom part would be the bottom part of their beak. You notice it's kind of blunt at that end. And that is great. So then it can close up its beak. Very sharp beak. And a very, very small skeleton. Compared to how many feathers are on its head, it has a very, very small skeleton. So they are out there flying at night, and that eye is as big as possible to let all the starlight and the moonlight in to help it hunt as best as it can. But it also uses its hearing. Now, we have these ears on us that have this external part of our ears. Now, if we would cup it over, we could hear things in front of us pretty well. But can we really hear things behind us? Not so much. So owls have an ear up here and an ear down here, and they do not have this external part. So many people think that these tufts at the top of the head are the owl's ears, but they're just feathers. They're not the ears at all. The ears are actually covered up with feathers underneath and are just a hole, just like we have a hole for our ear. And they are so good at being able to hear that they can pinpoint exactly where that mouse is. So like they're out here hunting during the middle of winter, right? They can hear the mice underneath the snow, put their talons into that snow and grab the mouse out. Scientists have even tested this out themselves. They've put an owl in a completely pitch black room and let a mouse go. And the owl, by using its sense of hearing, found that mouse just by that sense, not the sense of eyesight or anything. That's pretty great sense of hearing. I wish I had that sense of hearing. This morning at like 5 a.m., I was listening and I'm like, do my kids have the TV on in the living room? Oh, what is that sound? Is it coming from the basement? No. Here it ended up coming from outside my bedroom window, and it was the wind, but I could not pinpoint where that sound was coming from. So that's pretty cool that owls have great eyesight, great hearing to be able to know what their surroundings are. The very cool thing about these owls are actually their beak. They have a very big beak, a very sharp beak for being able to tear things apart. However, they have little nostrils for being able to breathe, but they cannot smell. They have no sense of smell. So a great horned owl that we have here today, its favorite meal, one of its favorite meals, it probably has a lot, is actually a skunk. Because if you think about it, a skunk, is it camouflage? No, it's black, has a big white stripe, and it owns the forest when it is walking around at night because it says, if you mess with me, I'm gonna spray you. But guess what? Does the owl really care if it has no sense of smell? No. So the owl says, hey, that's an easy meal, and swoops down and gets it. It's a really, really big size meal. So is that owl gonna have to eat tomorrow night, or even for a few nights, or even maybe even for a week? No, because it's gonna get filled up on that one meal. So a skunk has a very good meal for it. So if you're ever out hiking in the woods, first of all, if you smell a skunk, maybe look around to make sure there's not a skunk around, but then look up into the trees and see if you can find a great horned owl sitting up in a tree that has just ate a skunk for supper. I wanted to cover a few things that an owl actually eats. So we have up here, we have a great horned owl, and down here we have a barn owl, B-A-R-N, like a barn. So barn owls, we have had a lot of barn owls in Iowa in the past. They are very slim to see anymore. They're not a very common owl, because we have actually taken down a lot of our old barns that they used to live in, or old trees that they like to live in. And so we don't have very many places for those barn owls to live any longer. But if you notice, there are a lot of lines going up to our owls. So that means those are the items that they would actually eat. So look at that. A great horned owl would eat a woodpecker. They'd eat a chipmunk. They would eat a weasel. Have you guys ever seen a weasel before? They're white in the wintertime. It's kind of a cool thing. They do like to eat chickens though. So if you have chickens, you have to put them away at night. Then we have, did you know that owls will actually eat snakes? Wow, that's pretty cool, isn't it? They'll eat shrews and voles and mice and all different kinds of those rodents. They'll also eat rabbits. Our robin here doesn't have anything going up to it. But yet that robin and that chickadee would be something that they would eat. If the robin and the chickadee are still out moving about at dusk time when those owls are just starting to come out. So they really like to eat all different kinds of rodents, and that is the main diet of owls. Talons are great for catching that prey. So when they catch the prey, they want to kill it immediately, because maybe where they're catching the prey is in the middle of the road. That's not a safe place for them to catch it and stay there and eat it. So they need to be able to catch it and carry it away to a tree limb to be able to eat it there. So they're going to try, they have very strong talons. If they had a tennis ball, how strong those talons would be, they would be able to crush that tennis ball. And if you notice, I have very thick gloves on today, don't I? That's because the talons are so strong that even through the gloves, I can feel how tight it holds on to me. And so if it's scared that I'm going to drop it or anything like that, it will hold on very, very tight. And I have those gloves on to protect my hands. There is no way that I could be able to hold this owl without these gloves on. Now inside of the owl is actually going to swallow all of its prey. It's going to catch it. It's going to, if it's a bigger animal, it's going to tear it apart. If it's a smaller animal, it might eat it in a couple bites or even swallow it whole, depending on what the size is. So then we see up here in this picture, and I'm going to try to pick you up here. And we see in this picture that the owl swallows that prey, okay? It's going to go down just like it does for us. However, it's going to stop in here. And it's going to start forming a pellet. That pellet doesn't come out after every single meal. So we might have, if we are dissecting a pellet, we might see today's pellet of being a mouse. We might see yesterday's of eating a bird. So the pellet can be in there until it gets big enough for that owl to kind of spit that back up. So it's going to regurgitate that pellet. So it's going to come back up, and then it's going to come out the owl's mouth and onto the ground. Now it's going to be eating all of the feathers, all of the fur, all of the bones, but its stomach is not going to be able to digest all of that. So that's why it regurgitates that pellet and all of those bones and feathers and teeth and claws, as you can see from the pictures down here. Okay, so a pellet is going to kind of, it's going to be a lot tighter than this. It's going to come out of that bird. It's going to regurgitate it. And then we're able to go ahead and we're able to dissect it. Now in here, I have a few items from what could be found in that owl pellet. So if you kind of can see, we have all kinds of different bones in there, okay? And it's always fun because you can be able to take them out and be able to try to identify some of those skulls or bones. Here is a bottom jaw. Here's another bottom jaw. And then you can tell if it's moles or voles or mice or shrews that they are eating. Sometimes you're lucky enough to actually find some bird bones in there. Not very often is there a bird parts in there. Here is a bottom jaw and a lot bigger. And you can tell it's still part of that rodent family because of that large front tooth that it has. But look at all those tiny little teeth that it has. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Here's the skeleton. The eye sockets would be right here. This is where the nose is. This is where the front teeth would be. Now its front teeth have fallen out, but underneath here, you can kind of see some of those teeth. Okay, so the owl also has lots of feathers on it, right? And so many feathers that it goes all the way down to the talons because they are here during that winter time that they have to keep their toes basically warm during the winter. Because even on those super cold, snowy days where we shouldn't be going outside, these guys are still being active at night when it's the coldest time of our year. And so they're out there looking for those mice, for any type of animals that are out running around during the winter time. And so they need to have a lot of feathers on. Now this owl weighs about 4.5 pounds. And if I we're gonna see if he'll let me put my finger in. Look at that. I'm touching with my fingertip of the glove. There's about that much feathers before I even can get to the body of our owl. He doesn't really like me touching him too much. But he has to have that many feathers to keep warm. Even though he lives here at Fontana, he's not a wild animal anymore. He still is going to be outside in a cage. So even though, you know, he is an animal that we can take into care facilities or into classrooms, he's still not our pet. We can't go home and cuddle with him at night like we can our cats and our dogs. So he still needs to stay warm during the night, even living here at Fontana. Owls also have silent flight, which means when they flap their wings, they do not make any sounds. And that's because they have these serrated edges on the sides of their wings. All other birds have their feathers really nice and tight together, but with the owls, they have those serrated edges. So it helps the wind move through it and giving them the silent flight. Now, it is a he. I say he all the time. We can tell by getting personal and checking, which Iowa State did that for us. But we can also tell by size. So in the bird world, females are usually bigger than males. That's because they have to protect those babies. And so they have to be a little bit more bigger looking, more scary looking, to be able to protect those babies, also for producing eggs. Now, most of our owls will actually lay their eggs in late February and early March. So even when there's snow on the ground, they're taking care of their babies. So the moms being bigger will help keep those babies warm, or those eggs warm, when they hatch. This is one of our most common owls in the state of Iowa, a great horned owl. Another very common owl is a barred owl. It has bars on its stomach and on its wings. And so these are our bigger owls, most common owls that you'll find here in Iowa. We also have screech owls. And screech owls sometimes like to move into towns, and they look like a great horned owl, but they're a lot smaller. When I've held a great horned owl before, their talons can just kind of go around one finger.
Of Iowa. Some of them are more common than others, so we will make sure that we go through the most common. So the most common that I feel that we have around here in Bremer County is the barred owl. And that barred owl makes this sound.
Barred owl, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?
So I'm kind of partial to barred owls. I worked at a camp and barred owls would come and fly over by the campfire and they would start hooting back and forth and make almost like a monkey call. So let's hear those barred owls again. And then going back to our great horned owl with the tufts on the top of its head, here is the great horned owl.
Great horned owl, 5 deep hoots. Hoot, 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 hoot.
So that's a fun one too. Definitely get to hear those sounds out in the forest. Then down here we have our eastern screech owl. We also have some western screech owls too, but the eastern screech owls are what you're going to probably most likely encounter.
Eastern screech owl, a descending whinny in a long tremolo.
Now, if you watch Scooby-Doo or remember from your childhood watching Scooby-Doo, we hear some of those scary sounds that they use in Scooby-Doo when they're walking in the forest trying to catch the bad guy. That they usually use that eastern screech owl for their noises. So let's hear that eastern screech owl again. Those are probably our 3 most common that we have in the state of Iowa. You can pretty much go anywhere and see those. The one that has been seen a lot in the George Wythe area over by Waterloo is the northern saw-wheat owl. And that one, there are some pretty great pictures of birders being out there and getting some great photos of those. Then, of course, we have the snowy owl, which is made famous in the Harry Potter movies. I'll be honest, I love Hedwig. I love the Harry Potter movies. And so, yes, if I had a pet, a snowy owl, that would be pretty amazing. But they're not very cuddly, so I don't think, you know, it'd be the best pet ever for us. But sometimes snowy owls do venture into our state when there is a low lemming population, especially in northern Minnesota and into Canada. They will actually fly here to Iowa. I actually remember it was the winter of 2007. I was pregnant with my oldest son, and we saw our first snowy owl in Dallas County, which is over by Des Moines. That we had ever seen. So that was a pretty cool experience. And now we're getting to see snowy owls come into the state a little more frequently, which isn't necessarily a great thing. That means that their habitat is kind of being influenced on how many lemmings are getting populated up there. And so that means that, you know, we're starting to find more snowy owls coming down here, and we want to make sure that they stay in the habitat that they should be staying in.
Thanks for joining us on learning about owls today.